We've done over $1 billion in sales. We're going to make sure that every consumer who takes the chance of buying a brand that they didn't know gets something that absolutely wows them and they fall in love with us. So when you're a brand that's producing content that they want, it becomes more cost effective to actually market yourself to the consumer.
Today on the show, I'm happy to have Evan Dash. He's a CEO of StoreBound. They're a family of brands bound by innovation. But one of the most notable brands you might be familiar with is actually Dash Kitchen Appliances. So Evan, a couple numbers around the company. What's been the total revenue to date?
We've done over $1 billion in sales.
And how many employees do you currently have?
We've got about 100.
And when did you actually found this?
So my wife and I founded it together in 2010.
So you are Mr. Kitchen Appliance. What brought you into the world of kitchen appliances? Because now you have several brands in the space.
Yeah, so kitchen appliances, I never really expected that this is where I would make my future, but I worked in Macy's and I worked in just about every different business in a department store. And when I got put into the housewares business, I absolutely fell in love with it. And my wife worked at Bed Bath & Beyond, and the two of us were familiar with the category and we knew the playbooks of all of our competitors. So when we founded the company, we saw a really great space to have fun, fresh appliances with a touch of fashion that were really geared to a younger consumer that the legacy brands weren't speaking to.
And how do you get started in the space of manufacturing your own products like this? It's one thing to have experience at Macy's, Bed Bath & Beyond, but then to go and make your own products.
Yeah, absolutely. That for us, we were both involved in product development in our retail companies, and we used to travel around the world and we knew a lot of factories. So when we started out, we were known by the factories. They knew who we were. We had done business with them before. So we had a level of credibility. So even though it was a startup, it felt like it was far from a startup. And we had a lot of people who were betting on us.
And now you have a book on the subject, right? Growing a business based on strong values and a valuable business.
Yeah. So I just launched my first book. It's called A Dash of Good. And it actually is about an initiative that we have here that's all about building a company that's built on strong values. And we give everybody in the company 12 paid days off a year that are specifically for working in communities or working on charitable causes.
So what are some of the core values in addition to helping the communities?
I think it goes back in my book. I write about how I failed out of college. Failure seemed to surround me everywhere I went. And I wound up joining the local fire department in Pennsylvania. And everything that I ever needed to learn about business, I learned on a fire truck. I learned about the importance of skills and practice and strategy and tactics and camaraderie and all of these things. But it all boiled down to we're measured on whether or not we improve somebody's day. You, as a firefighter, you're called out because most of the time somebody's having a bad day or has a problem that they can't solve. And we're brought in to help solve the problem and improve somebody's day. And what we really did when we started the company is Rachel and I said, if we are lucky enough to get this thing off the ground, we're going to focus on building an amazing environment for our employees. We're going to do right by our retail customers. And we're going to make sure that every consumer who takes the chance of buying a brand that they didn't know gets something that absolutely wows them and they fall in love with us.
So from day one, quality of the products is very important to you.
Absolutely. Quality and experience. So quality was a non-negotiable, but what we found is that most people are in our industry weren't focused on the experience. Everything, all of their tactics led up to making the sale. And then that was it. And we focused on that is the bare minimum. And at that point, we have to make sure that they have the right content and instructions and customer support. And we did some crazy things at the beginning, like even putting our customer service phone number on the outside of our box, which we still do today. And we get calls from consumers in retail shops saying, I'm looking at your rapid egg cooker. How exactly does it work? Or how much water do I need to use? And we have the ability to help make sales while people are in the store. But it's really about demystifying it and showing that we're a brand of real people.
One of the things that I've been in e-commerce for a decade now, and trying to compete with the large brands, I've always wondered how somebody like yourself builds a brand and charges a price point that is competitive with the others and yet can still bring a quality product. So how have you been able to not have to drop your pricing too low? Because the quality obviously costs more.
Yeah, we agonize over it because we believe in giving a real value to the consumer. We are a value-based, accessible brand. We're gearing toward younger people who may be just getting started with first apartment or first home. So value is really important to us. And what we did is we tried to figure out how do we take every bit of cost out of our model. So the first thing we did is we set ourselves up not like a product development company, but like a marketing agency. So all of the content that we produce is produced in-house by our people, our photographers, videographers, talent, people who live the brand, who are talking to consumers. For us, we're getting top-notch content at probably a fraction of what an agency would charge. But we also think it's such personal content and it has that sort of special sauce that connects with the consumer because it's being created by somebody having fun who lives the brand. So that's one thing that was really important. And the other thing is we run an organization where everybody works. We have no layers of management and people who just have big, high paying jobs who are sitting around and micromanaging and waiting for things to get done and then redirecting. Everybody here is an active participant in steering what we do. And those two things really, I think, transform the financial model to a degree. And then the third one is when people want to hear from you, you don't have to pay as much to advertise. So when you're a brand that's producing content that they want, it becomes more cost effective to actually market yourself to the consumer. So all those things together, there's no one handle that you can pull, but there's so many things that have to be done right. And every one of those pulled together, all of a sudden lets us get to that point that you were talking about to be a brand that can offer product at a strong value and still get a little bit of a premium compared to some people who may just be importing from China, for example.
And I know over time the business has evolved to where now you're part of a larger corporation, right?
Yeah. So in 2020, after about 4 years of seeking an investor, we finally made what we think is the deal of our dreams, which was with the most well-respected company in our industry. So we went the strategic route. They're called Group SEB. They own household brands like Tefal, Allclad, Krups, Rowenta, and they were founded in the mid 1800s. And we loved their people. We loved their values. They shared the same values that we did, or that we do, even though they're a much larger public company, which we found to be really unusual. And they've allowed us to run as a separate standalone entity run by the same management team, but now being able to tap into their resources from financial capital all the way through 40 different manufacturing plants around the world, quality control patents, and an absolute mass of expertise.
Did your role change after you made that shift?
Hasn't changed at all.
It's amazing. So you still operate the Dash way.
Yeah, absolutely. And they insisted that we do that. They were really in awe of what we created. And they have done so much to help us with more financial discipline around running the business and provide more resources, more legal support, things like that. But in those cases, what it actually did for me and the way that the main change is that it took me away from having to do those tedious things that I was not an expert in and allowed me to focus more on sales and product development and marketing, which are the things that got us to where we are in the first place.
And what inspired the book?
So I love speaking to entrepreneurs, students, and I think I have a relatable story that so many people have said, you know what, your story is all about embracing failure and finding success. And there's so many practical lessons. And I had countless people say, you should write a book. And I was not a reader. I love to listen to audiobooks, but clearly I didn't do well in school. So the thought of writing a book wasn't something that I expected to do. And I spent about 4 years writing. I'm focused on my day job all the time. So when I would have time that normally it maybe be watching TV or decompressing, I'd write. And I found it pretty cathartic to do. And it was nice to pick up my head a little bit and think about what were the things that really enabled the success. So I detailed out what the playbook's been from and what the key lessons have been along the way. And now I feel like I have something that I can give out where this was never about just selling books. This was about helping us to connect with younger consumers who want to know more about the companies they're doing business with.
So if those younger consumers wanted to learn more, get the book, get the audiobook, how could they do so?
Oh, they'll be able to get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and number of other places. The Kindle version's now live. The hardcover is sold out, but I expect that will be corrected pretty soon. We have another big shipment coming in, and it's called A Dash of Good: How to Turn a Business Based on Values into a Valuable Business.
Amazing. I'm definitely going to be reading it. I recommend our listeners do as well.
I
Evan, I
think
really
so.
appreciate you coming on today and sharing your story because now we know the man behind Dash. I want to thank everybody for listening to another episode of Failing to Success. I'm your host, Shag Palecki, and we'll see you next time.